Hey guys, I'm Birdie and this is Clown Cows. Welcome or welcome back. So in today's video, I'm going to be reacting to a video that I watched from a big reactor named Rachel. And I'm going to be sharing with you my evidence and my perceptions and my views on the areas of her video that I don't necessarily agree with. And I'm also at the very end of my video today, I'm going to share with you why I believe that Emily and Amberlynn Reid stay together, or why they continued getting back together. So I really hope that you're going to enjoy this video today. If so, I hope that you'll like and subscribe if you want to. If you're ready, I'm ready. So let's get started. Okay, so I'm going to be doing this video in segments, and each segment will have parts to it, and I will let you know as each segment and as each part changes. And if you hear any noises in the background, I've got people working outside, and I've also got several dogs inside the house. So just try to tolerate any noises if you hear it. Okay, so at the initial start of Rachel's video titled Exposing Amberlynn Reid Again, Rachel makes it clear that the purpose of her video is just that, to expose Amberlynn Reid again. In her opening statement, Rachel says that the reason she's making the video, and I'm just summarizing her words right here, but it was because Amber has gone on her platform and monetized lies and displayed abusive behaviors, and Rachel wanted to put a stop to it. She said it can't carry on. And I agree that Amber is a horrid human. She's mistreated people, pets, and she has provably monetized those behaviors on camera. She may have even killed two animals. At least the evidence supports that theory, albeit a flawed theory, it is still loosely supported. Last night in Jordy's stream, several viewers were asking in that chat, why isn't Rachel calling out Emily for Emily's crap like she is for Amber? And I've got two answers founded in one reason. The answers are number one, because she tells us up front that the purpose of her video is not to call out Emily, but it's to call out Amber and hold Amber accountable for Amber's bullshit and the monetization of said bullshit. And answer number two, she's getting paid to say what she's saying. I don't think it's hard to see that her Amber expose videos where she's teamed up with Emily have gotten her more views, more hype, more subs, and unless she's donating at all, which I'm not aware of, she's getting more money for saying what she's saying. People love to watch the bad guy get punished. It's psychologically ingrained in us to seek out justice, and many of us have Amber hard-coded as the bad guy, and she is. So by Rachel allowing our hatred of Amber to blind our judgment, she can expose Amber, in a loose sense exonerate Emily, at least for the most part of the mistreatment of Amber, and she can make bank. All's well that ends well, right? Well, not exactly, because by my calculations there's a second boogeyman, and she's just as much of a threat, at least within a certain demographic, as Amber is. Those are the two answers. The one reason is simple, and that's profit. It is profitable in many ways to highlight the wrongs of someone collectively hated, even if it means having to candy coat or church up the other one. That's my opinion based on my experience and background in advocacy, at least. In my years of advocacy, it wasn't unusual to target the person or group who was well known for horrid treatments or behaviors of others. Now, the person or group being advocated for weren't saints. The person was still human, still flawed, still guilty of plentiful sins, but they weren't publicly known for those bad behaviors. So, on the surface, they didn't pose the same threat to the community as the person whom the advocates were trying to take down. That's where I learned firsthand that there can be more than one bad guy. I think this situation is often referred to as the lesser of two evils, and although I don't subscribe to that rhetoric, I do understand the basis of where it comes from. I think for most, it simply means that everyone has skeletons in their closets and no one is perfect. We're all capable of poor choices and awful behaviors, and we all know that. But we, as a society, tend to target the ones that have those behaviors on display for the world to see. In this scenario, the one in Rachel's video, that person is Amber because she does factually monetize her lies and manipulative outbursts, fake health scares, and the mistreatment of others. So we collectively have disdain for Amber, therefore, we collectively have targeted her. She is the bad guy standing under the theater lights on stage. Emily, in my opinion, is the bad guy hidden amongst the rest of us in the seats watching the show. She has an education, a normal job, and she's a mother. Outwardly, at least what's exposed to the world, Emily seems like us. By all accounts, she seems normal like the rest of us, and Amber clearly isn't. But the silent or hidden difference between Emily and us is that Emily has faced accusations that make her just as dangerous, if those accusations are to be believed, and it has been socially accepted as fact, at least on this corner of the interwebs, that she has displayed seemingly dangerous behaviors toward past partners. Somewhere around the 2 minute and 11-second mark of Rachel's video, she says that Amber uses text messages to try and prove that Emily is the one who mistreated Amber, called her names, and threatened her. But Rachel says that the evidence shows that Amber is actually the mistreater. In fact, Rachel is wrong. The text messages that both Amber and Emily have shared have shown that they were both mistreating one another. Emily called Amber hateful names and threatened to expose her to reaction channels at one point. And Amber tried to control Emily's time, amongst other things, and threatened to expose her to YouTube. They each manipulated the other, as is shown on those texts. Think for a moment about the last video I made, and even the one before that. I talked about Emily and Amber both being terrible people in their own rights. I briefly discussed how they mistreated each other, and I stated that the initial text messages, in my opinion, were obviously a setup by Emily. Emily would clearly ignore Amber's claims or her argument, and Emily kept repeating the same phrase that Amber had grabbed her, bruised her arm, and put nail marks on her arm. And it's true, Amber did. Now, in those very first text messages that we've seen, and in the voice notes that Rachel played where Emily was speaking, there do appear to potentially be some inconsistencies in Emily's story. It could be that it was just a highly stressful and emotional time, so Emily was retrieving different tidbits of stored memories from that night, and that's a fair claim. Or it could be that she is attempting to control the narrative and using manipulation to accomplish that by pointing the hands of favor back into her corner. It is no secret that Emily doesn't like the way people view her due to the allegations that she has faced. After all, there could be serious ramifications of those allegations if they're proven to be true based on content posted publicly online. I plan on making another video where I use the very first text message exchanges between Amber and Emily and the voice notes of Emily when she gives her verbal recollection of what took place that night and early morning. And I will compare and contrast what she's saying and implying. In that video, I'll also break down why I believe Emily was indeed texting Amber in the way she was for the purpose of setting Amber up. And, as coincidence would have it, the text messages from Rachel's video titled Exposing Amberlynn Reid Again will be part of my evidence to show that Emily was planning on using those texts to go after Amber the entire time. For now, though, I want to focus on the topic of this video, which again is that two people can conclude different outcomes based on the same evidence, particularly when we scrape the surface. In another part of what I consider to be Rachel's opening statements, she says that Amber skirted around what people really care about, which is knowing the truth of what happened to Rarity. And I agree. We all want to know the truth, not Amber's warped idea of the truth, but we want the absolute truth of what happened to that sweet kitty. However, this is another part of where I believe Rachel was showing hypocrisy or favoritism toward Emily, because neither Amber nor Emily showed any real concern for Rarity in those text messages. And when Emily spoke about Rarity in the voice notes, she only called her by her name once, and every other time she referred to her as the cat. But even when referencing Rarity and what took place, Emily's main point that she was trying to drive home was never that she was concerned or worried about Rarity. The way I perceived it, at least, was that Emily only brought Rarity up to beat the dead horse again and remind us all again that Amber had put hands on her, followed her, used her massive body to block doorways and the likes. Emily didn't come across as trying to shed new light or perspective on the whereabouts of Rarity or any new theories as to what may have happened. Instead, the cat was brought up along with Emily's victimhood over and over again. Now, make no mistake about it, I believe Amber is responsible for Rarity. I blame Amber for Rarity, and as an animal advocate, I loathe Amber in deeply enraged ways because I believe in my heart that she did something or contributed to Rarity's demise or her going missing. But Emily didn't shed a tear either, not that I saw. She looked for Rarity. Both she and Amber maintained that story. But she did not, in my opinion, go out of her way to search for Rarity, even though she and Rarity supposedly loved each other very much. I know Emily said she looked between neighbors' houses, but did she knock on their doors and ask them if they've seen Rarity or to keep their eyes open for her? Did she immediately put out Rarity's litter box to attract Rarity by that scent to draw her back home? Because that's something that I think everyone who's had cats for any amount of time knows to do if an indoor cat gets outside and goes missing. How long did it take her to put up an insulated bin or something warm to serve as a suitable temporary shelter in case Rarity found her way back on a cold, snowy night? I don't think that Amber or Emily treated Rarity like Rarity was on the forefronts of their minds. Emily made limited efforts to find Rarity, but nothing extreme, and Amber did jack shit from my understanding. I am glad that Emily did at least try, though. But I don't want anyone being manipulated or misled into thinking that Emily acted as a powerful, unstoppable advocate on Rarity's behalf, or that she has shown great concern or distress over Rarity's whereabouts, at least publicly or in text messages or in voice notes, because like Amber, I don't believe she has. Again, this is all just my personal opinions based on the evidence that I have seen and how I perceive that evidence. While we're on the topic of Rarity, I think it's a good time to also talk about Twinkie and Twinkie's nails. Rachel had brought this up, and she is correct. Twinkie's nails are too long and they are curving, and as I have stated in previous videos, it's evident to me that Amber does not take her pets to the groomers, at least not every time it's needed. But I remember when Amber showed us Twinkie in Wisconsin. It was right after Rarity had gone missing, and Twinkie's nails were very long as well at that time. Why didn't Emily trim them? Some may say that Twinkie is not Emily's dog and therefore not Emily's responsibility, or that Emily worked, that Amber should have done it. Well, of course, Amber should have definitely taken care of her pets. But if you're in the home with someone who has pets, and if they are not taking care of their pets, if you're such an animal lover, would you not step in and do what you could to ensure that the pet's basic needs are being met? For anyone who thinks that if a pet is not your responsibility, if you don't technically own that pet, let me quickly invalidate that dangerous way of thinking. Because if you're going to share a home with someone, and if animals are part of that home, we should all show the animals care and respect, whether they belong to us or not. And Emily has several animals of her own, some of which we've never even seen, even though she works. So if she can take care of her own pets, as she claims to do, then why couldn't she trim Twinkie's nails? This all makes me think back to the extra stuff that Beck did for the welfare of Amber's pets. No, she didn't do everything that some of us would have done. But Beck did show a genuine care, love, and concern for Rarity, Twinkie, and Wasabi. But to me, just my opinion, Emily only used the animals and how she supposedly cared about them to gain favor from Gorl World, because her reputation was in the toilet, and I think she knew that by showing herself as an animal lover, she would gain some points. The problem is that Amber's pets, even inside of Emily's home for those 3 months, looked just as matted, just as neglected, and Twinkie's nails looked just as long to me. During the voice notes at around the 13-minute mark, Emily does what Amber does. Emily said, and I am quoting her verbatim, quote, when she says how awful I was to her, it was always when she would do things like get mad at me for going outside and smoking, and she'd ask to come with, and I was like, no, I need some alone time. She did not like that. Or she'd say, you've been out there for 17 minutes now. What are you doing? And I'd get upset about it. End quote. To me, it sounds like Emily is saying that Amber would try to control Emily and be overbearing with her, and that Emily reacted angrily to that mistreatment. Kind of like how Amber says that Emily would call her names when she was mad, and Amber would react to that mistreatment. In Emily's own words in that voice note, she said, quote, when I'd get upset, she would get upset. End quote. That sounds so familiar because Amber has said the same thing, only Amber has outright called it reactive abuse and said that she's not responsible for it, as where Emily more low key implies that Emily's anger was her own reactive mistreatment of Amber. Peas meet pod. Emily also says that Amber accused her of stonewalling and of being cold toward her, and Amber has told us that Emily was cold and would stonewall instead of addressing problems as they occurred, which is what Amber wanted to do. To me, based on the duo's stories that actually do align if we just pay attention, it seems that Amber would aggressively try to steal all of Emily's time and attention due to extreme insecurities and low self-esteem. And Emily, who actually has a job and has a life outside of Amber, wanted her alone time and to walk away when problems arose. One had physical and mental freedom, and the other was imprisoned within her own body and her own past, which she chose to fuel for monetization and excuses. Much of what they have had to say, if we really pay attention to the text messages and the voice notes, are the same. Emily has actually not helped herself very much in some of those voice notes because she said things that were incriminating. She has let us know that she would mistreat Amber because she was angry because Amber would push her too far. And Amber would say that she would mistreat Emily when she was angry because she was hurt and she wasn't responsible for what she did when she was hurt. they say so much of the same things, and I think it's because deep down they have a lot of the same issues. Okay, so I'm only about 18 and a half minutes into Rachel's video, and to be fair, I agree with Rachel's overall tone and I agree with her intent of the video to expose Amber for the awful things she's monetized. But I do feel like Rachel is at times cutting Emily too much slack, and she's going too easily on Emily. In many ways, it feels biased and hypocritical. At around the 20 minutes and 20-second mark, Rachel shows text messages between Emily and Amber. And in my opinion, Emily is very much coming across as being just as awful as Amber. In one of those text messages, though, Amber said, quote, "I let you do whatever you want." End quote. And Rachel perceives that as Amber feeling like she has power or authority over Emily because Amber used the word let. However, I perceive that very differently. You see, I don't think Amber is very intelligent, and I think she has a super limited vocabulary. And by saying, "I let you do whatever you want," I think Amber likely meant that she didn't try to stop Emily from doing things that Emily wanted to do, or she didn't try to pick arguments with Emily if Emily wanted to do something. Even Emily stated earlier in the voice notes that Amber asked Emily's permission to go outside with Emily when she would smoke, and Emily said no because she needed personal time to herself. But Rachel didn't say anything about Emily having perceived authority over Amber, even though Amber was the one asking for Emily's permission to join her outside. It seems unfairly harsh that Amber, with elementary vocabulary, acts as if she thinks she has authority over Emily because she used the word let, but it's not seemingly a red flag that Amber was asking Emily permission to do things. Again, that part felt hypocritical to me. And just as a reminder, I'm not trying to defend Amber or her horrible behaviors. I am, though, trying to show that Emily, like Amber, also has them. I'm looking at the same text messages as Rachel, but I'm concluding a different outcome than that of Rachel. I'm sure many of you have heard me speak endlessly on the importance of not being what I call a surface dweller. We need to look beyond what's right in front of us and not just blindly follow. Now, Rachel has said that she was bringing context into the equation. But context is only as strong as perception, and if we automatically perceive one to be the greatest evil, then I believe we can unintentionally not hold others to that same scrutiny. And this is my argument with regards to the text message exchanges. Emily is very much saying and doing what Amber has accused her of, and Emily is accidentally giving some credence to Amber's complaints about Emily. But if we give Emily a pass here and there, and if we don't scrutinize or critique her within the same application of rules, then we won't have a balanced conclusion in the end. I'd also like to throw in a little side note here. At one point, Rachel mentions how Amber admitted to being controlling of Beck's time. And Rachel says that Amber didn't learn her lesson about giving people space. We all know that Amber is deplorably needy and insecure, but it's not really something Amber should just get over or learn a lesson about because it's rooted in insecurities that go back to feelings of inadequacies and abandonment issues likely due to her childhood. Amber needs inpatient treatment, in my opinion, especially since she scapegoats mental health disorders, which is very dangerous. So, Amber will never just get over it or learn her lesson when it comes to poor behaviors that mental health contributed to. She needs treatment, although we know she's never going to get it. I'm not going to go through Rachel's entire video and point out every little detail that I disagree with, because I'm happy with the argument and the evidence that I've shown. Emily and Amber, if we look at their relationship objectively based on the voice notes and texts, strongly imply that they actually mistreated each other. So, why did Emily and Amber stay together or constantly get back together despite their nonstop fighting and mistreatments towards each other? Well, here's my opinion. I think Amber is very needy and insecure. Feeling pretty and desired is of top importance to her. I personally think her fears of not being wanted stem from the abandonment she faced from her parents when they made a habit of choosing substances over their kids. Amber doesn't get treatment for her warped mindset. Instead, the trauma gets weaponized as an excuse to mistreat others. We know Amber lives in an outright fairy tale world of unicorns and rainbows. But in her false reality, she's got what she never had so long as she has someone claiming her. I think Amber sees it as validation, and she's desired, wanted, and chosen. She then proceeds to take her partner's care or love for her, and she uses those emotions as the tool to control them, mistreat them, and further traumatize them. In my personal opinion, I think Emily is a bit more confident, but I still see her as a ticking time bomb. She comes across as being easily angered, and based on things Amber has said, it leads me to think that Emily is very sex motivated and possibly enters into relationships for the physicalities of it, and maybe not so much for the emotional bonding of it all. Bluntly, I think Emily has a strong sex drive and fetishizes vulnerable or otherwise unstable people, or at the very least, people who are not as established or independent as she is. If we think about this from the idea of no surface level thinking, then we can imagine that vulnerable, desperate, or not so well established, or not very confident and not independent people could potentially be much easier to control. It's my opinion that Amber keeps going back to Emily because Amber is desperate to be wanted and to feel validated. And I think Emily keeps going back to Amber because she's sexually driven by people of Amber's size. And Amber's low self esteem keeps her in a literal physical and mental position to be intimate on demand. One has a fetish, and one has an overwhelming desire to be wanted. It's the perfect storm of a confident, opportunistic mistreater and an insecure, opportunistic mistreater. The absolute perfect storm of everything that never has a chance of ending well. But this whole video, everything that we've listened to, everything that we've seen, all the text messages, all the voice notes, none of it gets us any closer to knowing what happened to Rarity. And Rachel was right at that point in her video that finding out the truth of what became of Rarity is what we care about. That is what this is all about, and it is what we all want to know. So, despite anything else going on, and no matter who is more terrible than the other, at the end of the day, Rarity went missing. Rarity was sacrificed for this nonsense. She was sacrificed for a game of control, of mental health being weaponized, and of thinking that manipulation could get someone what they wanted in the end. So, those are my theories and opinions for whatever it's worth. Now, I am a flawed person, so I might be dead wrong on everything I've concluded, so don't take my views as being factual because they aren't and they never will be. Please don't harass anyone I've spoken about, and don't form your opinions based on my perceptions. Please form your own ideas by taking in all sides and remembering that it is okay to dig beneath what's obvious at surface level. Because sometimes it's where the truth is just waiting to be shown the light. Give me your thoughts and opinions, though. Why does Emily and Amber keep getting back together? Are they already talking again? Do you think this will end soon, or better yet, will it end well for anyone? How do you think this will all play out? Do you consider Emily to be an innocent victim of Amber's, or do you think she's a willing participant who helps feed the fire and she's as equally responsible as Amber is? Just tell me your thoughts. What do you think about Twinkie's nails being very long when they were in Wisconsin? What do you think about Rarity going missing? Do you think she found another home? Do you think something worse happened? Do you think we'll ever know the truth? Do you think Amber or Emily knows for certain what actually happened that night or morning? Now, my husband's going to be out of town for work this week, so I'm going to have a lot more farm work to complete. So, this will likely be my only video until he gets back. If anyone out there has a farm, you know that it's very time consuming and it's very demanding, taking care of all the animals, but you will also know that it's worth every backbreaking day. Be safe, friends. Thank you for watching. I appreciate each and every one of you more than you know. Even if you don't agree with me, that's okay. That's something that you'll all learn about me in time, is you don't have to agree with me. You don't have to stroke my ego, and you don't even have to leave nice comments. I really want to know what you are thinking. What are your true thoughts and what are your true opinions? Let's talk it out. Let's figure this out together if we can. I'll see you all again soon. Bye for now.